Hello, this video is the first one on hypothesis testing, which is really, it's a field of statistics which is really important to academia and science research and things like that, and I'll explain why in a second. But basically, hypothesis testing asks the question, has anything changed? And I'll write anything because I'll just going to generalize it a bit. So has anything changed? Let me explain. If we know that the average, the mean height of Australians is 172.3 centimetres. That's the average height of Australians, and that's been taken sort of every year. And let's say we take a sample of, let's say, 100 Australians at random, and we find out that X bar is equal to 161 centimetres. Okay, so we've just taken a sample of 100 Australians, and we get this sample mean. What hypothesis testing is asking, well, you got this sample mean of 161 centimetres, but you told me that mu is 172, okay? And so we're going, well, what the heck? What's going on here? And what hypothesis testing asks is, well, firstly, there's two options. Firstly, the first option is that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And in fact, that this was just a sample, or a sample where we just happened to get a lower value, and so we've just a sample to sample variation. So you take one sample, you might get something low. You take another sample, you might get something higher. So the variation between each sample explains that you just got a low number. It was that's all we've got. Okay, so that's the first option. The second option, that how we could explain this low number, is that in factual fact mu has decreased. So this low value is actually explaining, no, actually mu has dropped in the last few years. The heights of Australians has actually got less and less. I don't know why. Maybe our population is getting older, and so we've got more short people. Not sure. What happened is mu has decreased. Okay, and so the probability of this happening, so the probability of getting such a low sample mean is really low. Like it's really unlikely that we would get a sample mean. I'll explain a bit more about that next. So that's what we're doing in hypothesis testing. We're explaining it's either this one or this one, and we're just trying to choose, using statistics, we're trying to choose which way to go. Has something changed or has nothing changed? That's what we're looking at. If nothing has changed, what we call this is the null hypothesis. So H0, we write that as H0, we call that the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis basically says that nothing has changed. In other words, that the mu is equal to mu0. Mu0 is just your initial mean, which is this value up here, okay? So that's my mu0 there. Nothing has changed. The new mean is equal to the old mean. Nothing has changed. The heights of Australians has not decreased, it's not increased, it's just stayed the same. Here, what we call this is the alternate, or the alternative hypothesis, and that's labelled as H1 or HA, as you can write it as something way, and that's called the alternative hypothesis. Okay, and what we're saying here is that the new mu is actually less than mu0. In other words, it's decreased. We've got some evidence to say, well, we actually think that the population mean has decreased, and so we're going to go with this alternative hypothesis. And that's what hypothesis testing is. We look at a situation, we look at what the average is, we take a new sample, and we look at what that mean is, X bar. We look at what that mean is, and then we try to decide, well, has something changed? Has anything changed? if we can look at a statistic to see whether we think that it has not changed, but we just got a bad sample or a low sample here, or actually that sample is actually telling us that the sample mean has decreased. Sorry, not the sample mean, the population mean has decreased. And that's what's going on here. That's really, really important to understand what we're trying to do. And what we're looking at really is trying to look at what's the probability of this happening and what's the probability of this happening. And if it's got a low probability that one of these happens, then you need to choose the other one. But I'll go more into that situation in a second. I just wanted to say something else about this here. Here I said that if nothing has changed, how do we explain this low value for the sample mean? Well, that's just because each sample, you might get a low sample and a high sample and a medium sample. It's just get variation. Okay, so that's how we explain this. But how do we say that mu has decreased? Well, that's if the probability is just too great. It's just really low. The probability is much, much too low. And so that's what we're looking at here. In the next video, that was just a video to introduce the topic. In the next video, I'm going to go through an example which will hopefully explain it a little bit more clearly. I'll see you in that video.